To the West Canada Valley Board of Education regular meeting. Today is Monday, June 8th, 2020. This is the 6:30 p.m. regular meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any questions on the consent agenda as provided? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
First.
Sean first. Jessica second. All in favor? Okay, thank you. This brings us into our action items. First up is the personnel report. Can I get a motion to approve the tenure approval of Olivia DeJong, tenure area speech remedial, effective September 1st, 2020?
This is Janine. I make a motion.
Janine first, Shauna second. All in favor? Thank you. Motion to approve the resignation of Dorothy Patusik, teacher assistant, resignation for the purpose of retirement effective June 30th, 2020 with regret. Jessica first. Janine second. All in favor? Thank you. That brings us into action item B, the 2020-2021 terms and conditions of employment for the 4 non-contractual employees.
I have a question.
Okay, Mr. Kemmler, go ahead.
The question is for Mr. Shepherdson. Haven't we discussed this in executive session before we did it out in the open? Why are we doing these? Why are we doing these in an open meeting? I've got some questions, but I'm not going to ask them.
At this point, we can go into executive session, Mr. Kemmler, to discuss.
No, I don't want to go into executive session. This should have been done in executive session first. We always have done it in the past at first, and we're missing one.
We're missing, what are we missing, Mr. Kemmler? I'm sorry.
Athletic director.
No, he's not at terms and conditions. He's in the administrative contractual. He's with the principals.
Go ahead.
Okay. The 4 non-contractual employees are the business manager, Kelly Crossett, cook manager, Joanne Van Armen, confidential secretary and district clerk, Karen Sheets, transportation supervisor, Felix Ray. Are there any questions on these 4?
I have a question in regards to the district clerk. Who did we check into at 3%? What other schools did we check into?
I did not check into any other schools. I aligned that raise with the other senior account clerks that we have in the building.
Do you have any further questions on that, Mr. Kemmler?
Are the other clerks, are they under a contract?
They're under the CSEA contract.
Okay, that's different. She's not.
Okay. At this point, can we have a motion to approve the 2020-2021 terms and conditions for the employment of the 4 non-contractual employees? Jessica first. Janine second. All in favor? Those opposed? Okay, thank you. The next action item is the school calendar adjustment. Mr. Shepherdson, if you could please discuss.
Sure. So obviously, the calendar for every school district in New York State has been drastically changed with the statewide school closure. So this has sort of been an unknown and an ongoing process throughout the entire last part of the year here, before we got some guidance in terms of what days would be closed, what days are part of state closures, and so forth. And in the end, it was left to districts to be sure that they had at a minimum 180 days of student days in their calendar. So during this year, we've had a number of different things go on, including floods, obviously in the fall. And then we had 2 days of closure that led up to the statewide closure on a Wednesday, which was March, I believe, I'm just looking right now, March 18th is when the statewide school closure started. So in the end, we were basically forced to use 6 emergency days this year, 12/2, 2/6, I believe 2/17, 2/24, and 3/16 and 3/17. And then we were guided by the governor to add in the instructional days for vacation, which was the entire break that was over April and the 2 additional days that were over the Memorial Day break. Essentially then taking your calendar, we counted back from there, which gave us a last overall day of 6/16, 2020, which technically gives us 181 days on the calendar. So that's the last day of school. Those are the changes to the instructional calendar, with all the vacation days put back into instructional days. We had to use 2 emergency days on the first 2 days of the COVID-19 closure, when we closed and the Herkimer County closed basically, prior to the March 18th statewide closure. So those are the days, those are the ones we had to change, and we need to approve that calendar change.
Okay. And just in case I missed it, Mr. Shepherdson, the flood waiver, we did get 3 days for that portion.
Yeah. So early, that occurred prior to even the COVID closure. We were required to go in and fill in the waiver for those days. We obviously had extensive damage here. So some of the schools had 1 day. I believe there were a couple that had 2 in Oneida County. We had 3. So we were covered under the Herkimer County closure for the Monday and Tuesday upon return. And obviously it was a state closure too, because the state highway was closed at that point. So yes, those do not count into the emergency days.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on the school calendar adjustment? Okay, we can get a motion to approve the school calendar adjustment as presented. Sean first, Janine second, all in favor? Thank you. Next up on the action item is the superintendent contract for Mr. Shepherdson. Are there any questions on that contract? Okay, as part of this, it's going to be a 2-motion discussion. The first motion, if we can get a motion to approve a 2% raise for the superintendent contract. Jessica first, Janine second, all in favor? Those opposed? Thank you. The second motion is to extend the contract by 1 year. So can I get a motion to approve the extension of the contract by 1 year for the superintendent's contract? Janine first. Jessica second. All in favor? Those that oppose? Thank you. All right. The next up is the discussion items. First up is the end of year update. Mr. Shepherdson, please.
Sure. I've got a couple things to update. Obviously, we got a lot of information on Sunday morning. So this kind of changed from when I originally planned out this meeting, but I'll start with the budget vote and the board member vote, which was set to take place at the closure at at June 9th at 5 o'clock tomorrow. if anybody's seen this in the media already and so forth, the executive order was issued, written out today, that basically extended that for the mail-in portion of the absentee ballot. So up until 5 o'clock tomorrow on June 9th, you are able to request ballots and you are able to hand deliver ballots up until 5 o'clock. After 5 o'clock on June 9th, there's no longer an ability to request any ballots, although ballots will be accepted by mail all the way till the following Tuesday, June 16th at 5 o'clock. So at that point in time, we are then able to canvass and count votes and determine election and budget results. And that was was verbally issued yesterday, and it was carried out today in an executive order from the governor. Any questions on that portion of the update?
Yeah, DJ, can you maybe explain to those that might be streaming what the process is? Because I've heard some questions about absentee ballots because they have to sign their name on the back of the envelope. They don't feel it's confidential.
Because they don't, well, they're required to sign the oath on the back of the envelope. Is that your question, Sean?
Right. I explained so the district clerk, I think, can validate that it's a legal vote.
Yeah. So once they sign that oath, that legalizes that all the information in there is accurate and that you're a legal vote and so forth. Without that signature on there, the envelope could technically be filled by anybody at that point in time. So that's your individual oath that you've submitted, and once that's there, that gets put into the ballot box at that point in time.
But the people that are counting, will they see that envelope so they know who voted what?
So no, so the envelopes get passed down. There'll be a process. They're opened. The ballot is passed over. It's kept folded as it is in there, and then it's placed into the ballot box. So no ballots are opened or anything at that point in time.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Where do the ballots go
The ballots will go into our ballot box.
after they're taken out of the white envelope?
They're in there right now, and yes, then once we'll bring them in the voting inspector will pull them out folded. No one will look at them. They'll pull it out of the white envelope. They'll put it into the ballot box like we do with all other ballots. And then once that process is completed, then the vote counting will begin.
Therefore, the counters will not be in the room when they're doing that. Is that correct?
The counters won't be in the room when they're pulling the white ballots, when they're pulling them out of the white envelope. Yes, whoever our inspector is and another person, there'll be a process of them opening the envelope, passing it to the next person folded, and then placing that into the ballot box.
So are they going to be in the same room at the same time?
Yes, all the tellers.
Why do they have to be?
They're the ones they're the voting inspectors, and they're the counters for it that we've
But
approved.
the counters won't be counting until all the ballots are in the ballot box. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Therefore, why do they have to be in the room? The only people should be in that room should be the two people who are opening the ballots. If you're using two, BOCES suggested one, but it's two. No problem there. I would prefer that there is someone overseeing that. I'd like to see someone from this board overseeing that process.
Okay. I'd have to check on that. I don't know the answer to that, Mr. Kemmler. I can look into that to see what the legalities are.
Who do you have to check with?
I'd have to check with lawyers to see how that works with this process. If we can have a board member in there, I don't know who's permitted to be there to do that and who's not. Like, I'm not permitted. The clerk's not permitted to open them. Those kinds of things. So there's, who we've approved to take care of our voting process, like we have in the past.
Who is to say that the people who are opening the ballot doesn't look at the ballot? Who is to say that? Who's going to see them?
I don't know. I guess my answer to that would be that we've got to trust the people that we've put in there, that this is a confidential process that they've been appointed to do.
Okay. Well, I had a person come to me today. They got their envelope. There was no ballot in it. And I also had a gentleman speak to me tonight when I'm sweating in the barn. He got an envelope, but his wife didn't. What was the process for that? One per household or what?
So all they would have to do is call Mrs. Sheets in
No,
the
no, no,
office.
no, that isn't the
and get
question
another-
I asked.
Yeah, so the initial process was to take the last 4 years of polling, start with that.
Who derived that? Who came up with that idea?
That came from our legal.
How come other schools didn't use the school taxes and everybody that pays school taxes got a ballot?
Well, everybody that gets school taxes isn't qualified to vote. And we also have renters and people that have moved in and different things. So using the registration or the tax roll or any of that will have us sending ballots to people who aren't qualified.
Right. But what are these people supposed to do? They can't mail them now. They both, the one couple, they work.
Yes,
There
they
was
can
no
mail them.
ballot in the envelope.
Yes, they can mail them all the way through next Tuesday.
Oh, good. That's nice to know. So your final answer is we're going to have two people opening the ballot and we're going to have the counter sitting there. Is that correct?
What my final answer will be is that we'll look into that process to make sure that's the way we've typically done things in the past with that. But I know this is a different situation, but we've got to open those ballots. They're folded within there. We throw the envelope away and we put the ballot in the box. Nobody's going to be looking at them. I mean, I would hope that people that were involved in the process would take that job seriously and put that into the ballot, knowing that this is a confidential process.
So, and just to clarify, Mr. Shepardson, everybody that's in that room, we approved earlier on in the school year.
Correct.
We did?
Yep. Those are all your tellers and counters. Yes.
When did we approve them? We have a mile-long list and it's the same people over and over. And the list shows me, Mr. Shepardson, if you look at the list that you approved, that we approved, and I don't know when we approved it, you'd have to prove that to me. Former and all employees of the school. Not good. In my book, not good. But I'm old school. Thank you very much. Every person, every taxpayer in this school district should have received a ballot. Everyone.
I think their voting for school board is different than other votes. Correct me, DJ, if I'm wrong. And I do recall, I don't know what meeting it was, but I do recall a conversation of approving the tellers. And we also, based on all the districts, we are also paying them, I think, this time around too, correct?
Correct.
We approved the list of tellers, but
Yes.
nobody from the list is on there.
Yeah,
On
no-
what?
All employees of the school, 3 employees of the school, and then you have other ones who were employees of the school. Not a good situation, I'm telling you right now. And that's the way I feel about it.
But we also have to remember too, when we approved those tellers, that was before this COVID pandemic and how everything changed. So I don't know what you would do
We're
now.
still counting, Sean. We're still counting. There are people out there that will count for us. We don't ask them anymore. People who have given us a lot of time.
I think we've asked a lot of people to come in. Some, with everything going on, wouldn't come in. You know, I'm not in charge of making those calls, so I can't speak for which ones said yes, no, or who we called and all of that. But with this current situation and so forth, it wasn't, as easy to get people to come in and do that at that point in time. So I'm not sure, but these are all people that are approved on our list to be these people. So that's the list we go through to call to come in and do the work. And our inspector has been one that we've used for years, who's not an employee of the district.
We know that. The other ones are. Counters are. For some reason, you don't get it. That's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm done.
Okay. Next up on the discussion items, Ms. Shepardson, is the ESSA update.
Let me back up let me back up, Charlie. That's just the first part of the end of the year.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So obviously we got some good news in the last day or so in regards to graduation as well. I've had some communication with a number of community members today in regards to this update itself. Quite different than we had before, where we were looking at a situation where we were maxed out at 10 people total that could be here. We were looking at the best case scenario being graduation appointments and so forth. And then on Sunday morning, it was released that we now can have smaller graduation gatherings of up to 150 people in an outdoor setting. So obviously with that announcement, that changes our thought process on how we're looking to move forward here. We met on this today a little bit. Certainly would like your input on any of this that you have. But our initial reaction to this is, again, going day by day with these announcements, which could change again one way or the other at any point in time, obviously. But going with the current announcement, we're looking to move the graduation ceremony to outside, likely to the football field, setting up the ceremony out there. We're waiting for the guidelines in order of what needs to be implemented with the 150 people that are there. And likely, in order to accommodate the number of students plus the attendees of that, we may need to do two separate ceremonies here at two different times on the 27th to accommodate the guests and the students there. Still not a perfect situation, but it does create a ceremony. We'd have two identical ceremonies on the same day, limited capacity, obviously up to 150, and we would do that outdoors, likely on the football field.
How many senior students at this point? I believe it's 54. Is that correct?
Yeah, 54. We do have one that'll have a military commitment that won't be able to attend that. So we'll be down to 53 for ceremony purposes.
Are we going, we need to make sure we honor that student also. So if that has to be a separate, please let us know. Are they leaving before the graduation?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. Well, there's some process before they can leave now with everything going on. So that's really what's changed what we're doing. So yeah, our plan is to recognize them on a scheduled day to come in and do that with their family and get that taken care of on an individual basis before their military commitments begin.
Okay. And then with that note, the amount of faculty at a minimum that would be at the ceremony?
So we're looking at the numbers. We're going to be, we'll certainly have some staff that'll be working parking lots and so forth, and some technology people and so forth, because we're going to stream it. In terms of faculty, there wouldn't be any faculty because you'll be looking at if you have 20, if you have 27 students in the first session, and each one was able to bring 4 guests, you're getting up into the 130s with the numbers right there. So there won't be a lot of room for extra attendees for that if we do that process, unless we limit the attendees further. Mr. Gage, we're still waiting on guidance on this to be clear, but I believe the 150 includes the students. If that were to be different, then that would change things, obviously. But the initial interpretation is that the 150 is total.
Okay. And I'm sure we're expressing that would be worst case scenario, splitting them into 2, and then if they did open up, we would still accommodate the 1.
Yeah. So if there was any sort of extension of that between now and the 27th, certainly. I mean, the ideal situation would be at this stage, I think, to have one ceremony outdoors even is fine. So we're hoping for that, but yeah. So if you're to ask me today, that's the worst case scenario, that we would have to split the ceremony into 2, but it would be a graduation ceremony.
Does anyone else have any opinions on the graduation? Any other ideas that would help the students?
Is there a rain date?
So yeah, we're looking into that, making the rain date the 28th, which would be that Sunday. We're talking about that. I think the rain date would be used only in a real challenging situation. A little rainfall might not be. Our plan is to have, at this stage, the a tent over the students as sort of a graduation area, and then the guests out onto the field, probably in their own separate designated areas with their lawn chairs and things like that. So, yeah, we're looking into that rain date being the next day, but that's just something we initially talked about today, Ms. Bartlett.
Also, as far as the board being there, I feel like we could all just watch from home and give our spots to family.
Yeah, so the initial reaction would be to have the board president and see kind of what the numbers are, and then go from there with that. But that would be kind of your call. If we want to do further than that, yeah, if that would just subtract from the 150.
So I'm willing, and it was brought up that some of the board members might have relation that are graduating also. I'm definitely willing to walk off the field to allow another board member to go up if that is requested. All right. Was there any more items on the end of year update, Ms. Shepherdson?
I'm sorry, the salutatorian and class president and those kind of speeches, will they be able to provide them at both ceremonies?
Yeah, so that the initial discussion, Sean, on that was yes. We haven't had those direct conversations with the individuals just yet, as we planned just today with the new information. But yeah, there's strong consideration if they're willing to have those people at both and having identical ceremonies done at both ceremonies. So that's our hope right now. There is one overlap with that, so that helps too. It's not 3 different people, it's 2. So that's.
Also scholarships, obviously, some will be there, some not, but maybe a way to recognize all students at both ceremonies, or no?
Yeah, so yes and no, because they don't know they're getting those. So
Right.
So we want to read the descriptions, because I in our meetings today, we really talked about recognizing the generous people who donate to these things and the organizations that donate. So I think we'll be able to, although we won't be able to call every kid up, we can have them stand and announce their award, and also recognize what the award is for and who were the donators, because I think that's an important part of the process. So us doing it this way, I think we can do that as well. So we would probably, both of them will be streamed, so everybody will get to see that. But if we announce everybody at 10 o'clock, the people at noon will already know what they're getting.
Yep.
Okay. And anything in addition to that, Mr. Shepherdson, under your updates?
No, I think for right now, everything else is progressing forward, unless anybody else has any other questions on anything. We've got everything organized for pickups, from equipment and school property. We've got the closure items set up. The report cards are all set to go. So I think all of our end of the year items are in line to finish the school year.
If you just want to reiterate, in case there's someone streaming that's not aware, I believe you said the pickup dates were the 15th and 16th, or the drop-off dates.
Yeah, so on January 15th, we'll be around with buses between 8 and 10 to pick up from the houses. The directions have been provided to them on the pickups. We are also having a drop-off between 10 and 12, which coincides with the cafeteria pickup as well. So those that are coming down to get cafeteria pickups can drop off at the middle school, high school cafeteria entrance, and also pick up the cafeteria food before they leave.
And you just want the people to bag it up and leave it on like a porch or something? Because it wasn't very clear.
Yeah. So we're hoping that,
Every single house of every student in the district.
so we're going to be stopping at every house. Our hope is that we're able to meet people to hand and do that exchange. And if we can't, they'd be able to do the drop off, and those that can't meet either one of those, I put in the letter that we can make individual arrangements with that person. So for some reason, if those times don't accommodate for work purposes or nobody's going to be home, then we'll work with those individuals to make sure we get their equipment.
Thank you. Next up on the discussion item number B is the ESSA update.
Yeah, so I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Broadbent, who will give you an update on our educational plans and the process going forward. This has certainly been a challenge as well with the closure and with the quarantining of individuals and departments and so forth. But things have started back up again, and we're in the process. So I'll turn that over to Mr. Broadbent. You can talk a little bit about what we're doing.
All right, so I've had a couple meetings, one with Sue Stoya and Nancy Andres from CASDA, who we contract with regarding the SEP. I've attended several webinars on the changes in the SEP and their expectations for this year. The SEP is due July 15th, and currently I'm forming committees and looking at the data and getting the SEP ready so that we can discuss it. I would say one of the probably major changes in our SEP would be incorporating STAR into our 7th and 8th grade classes. It's something the state is requiring so that we can have more data to address whatever needs, especially English and math, to help us increase our scores and participation on the state test. My next SEP visit is June 26th, the Friday right before graduation. And I believe that Monday, they'd be looking for a rough draft. So I'll be meeting with some parents and teachers over the next couple weeks, finishing a draft for that and just discussing things that we can do to, improve the school and, all those things such as grades and participation on the test. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions regarding the SEP.
That'll follow through till next year.
Yeah, so that SEP plan would start in September and run through July 1st, really. And some of the stuff from this year's SEP will transfer over to next year just because of the coronavirus, and we didn't really have enough time to implement stuff. One of the things that is going to transfer over is instructional walks, which are informal, in a sense, informal observations of the teachers to see that they're using engagement strategies, cooperative learning, differentiated instruction, the things that you're looking for to further engage our students and make them more active in the school process.
And then the process with the state will be done by the end of next school year if everything's on the up and up.
No, unfortunately,
Is it a 3-year?
It takes you 1 year to get on. I think the earliest we will be able to get off is spring of 2023. No matter how well we do, they were very impressed with our low chronic absentee rate. So impressed that we now have to beat the state's set goal for themselves to kind of meet our, well, it's called the MIP, but really our goals.
On the other side of that, Mr. Broadbent, isn't it also beneficial because the money is going to be carried over for longer due to the COVID?
Yes.
So it would give you further assistance?
Yeah, and that was helpful. We actually were able to, with the money this year, we were able to hire an instructional coach, people from CASDA to help us with curriculum writing and some professional development. And we were able to buy 285 Chromebooks, which will be distributed into the 7th and 8th grade classrooms. And hopefully that will allow teachers to practice more for the state test on the Chromebooks that the kids are actually going to use to take the test. And it will also help them be more engaged in some of these activities that may be difficult because they were sharing, computers and technology prior. And another good thing about it is we'll be able to eliminate cell phone use in the classroom, because often certain things were used for cell phones because of the lack of technology. So this will actually really help us a lot for the 7th and 8th graders at this point. And it will also free up the Chromebooks that we had that were being shared with the 7th and 8th graders so they can be used in the 9th, 10th, and 11th grade and 12th grade classes.
So now do you have enough, one per kid?
So the weird thing with the SEP money, the ESSA money, is that it's given for the school that you're cited in. We're technically cited for the middle school.
Right, but now with the extra, do you have enough for all students with what you previously already had?
We physically have enough computers, but they will be in classrooms. So, any student who goes into that classroom would be able to use that. I don't know if we have currently enough to have a Chromebook cart in every classroom at this point, but we do have some desktops in some classrooms that will be used, such as like the tech room as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything to add on the ESSA? Anyone? All right, that'll bring us into discussion item C, which is the summer feeding program.
So I discussed this, at previous meetings we've had. Obviously, the childcare and the feeding program was implemented once the closure happened. So that would continue through June 30th. The governor issued a statement that basically said that that remote instruction would continue for the summer, along with summer feeding and in addition to that, the childcare. The catch to that is that hasn't been issued in an executive order. Currently, there is no mandate to continue, nor has there been any promise of extended funding through the summer to continue feeding throughout the summer. And schools that have existing summer feeding programs or have qualified in the past with over 50% free and reduced to have summer feeding programs are just continuing those programs. For districts like us that don't have that program or don't necessarily qualify for that program, we're kind of following the mandate. So this is kind of a tough one because there will be districts that are doing this, but some of the districts are finding out that there isn't a guarantee of federal reimbursement and so forth for that. If we apply in, we've got to ensure that we are serving over 50% of the free and reduced to get the aid back on those. And it wouldn't necessarily cover all the costs depending on how that happens, although we would go with limited staff in the summer. We've done some surveying. Mrs. Van Arnhem out of the cafeteria has done some surveying, just in the response from the survey, whether, that means everybody's responding. It looks that the summer would cut right down into half. Right now we're doing about 140. We're down from 160s. It cut down to 60 or into the 60s and 70s that said they would continue to participate in the summer. We then would have to ensure that that was at 50%. And so forth. So I guess my discussion item for all of you to kind of offer input on, if it's mandated, then there's not much to discuss. We've got to implement it. We've got to do the paperwork. We've got to do everything we're going to do. I'm not convinced that that's not going to happen anyway at some point here. But if it weren't mandated, then that's a different situation. So I guess I'm looking for your input on, or some guidance and thoughts on whether, in a non-mandated situation for July and August, are we continuing to run cafeteria when we're not a program that typically does that during the summer?
How many staff would that be?
So, we're looking into a couple of staff members. I've had Joanne kind of plan what she would need for the summer. That's, a lot of that's going to depend on the numbers we're getting for the summer. We can get a rough estimate, but we won't know until we get started. I mean, we could say there's going to be 70 and then it could be 30, or it could be more. So, it would take a few staff members, not anywhere near what we're doing now with it. But it would take a few staff. If we qualify under the program for this summer, which would just be a 1-year thing, there would be a chance the summer return in money is a little bit higher for summer feeding program than it is during the school year. So we try to work back to try to break even. We've worked on those numbers, Joanne, Kelly, and I, to try to get that back to where maybe we could break even. I'm fairly confident I might be able to get that back, feed, and still break even for the summer. But again, that's a question of whether we're just doing it regardless or we're only doing it if it's a mandate. I think you're going to see districts that have always done it do it, and districts, if a district hasn't done it in the past and they're not mandated, you may not see that happening everywhere. So it's kind of just a discussion call on the whole thing to see, what our preference is at West Canada Valley as we move forward.
Do we believe we have the need, whether it's 30 students or not, is the need arisen due to the corona that we should be doing this, I guess, is the bigger question.
Also,
Well,
didn't the local park programs provide lunches, but I don't know, are they operating this summer?
So that's at this point in time as we speak, yeah. So you had the town of Russia and some park programs that did some things in the past. As of right now, the answer is no to that. The park programs are not functioning in that manner, but that doesn't mean that's not going to change either, because he also opened up summer day programs recently too. So I don't know locally what the decisions are going to be on that at this point.
So could we come up with a rough cost, what we think it would cost us, both on a high and low range, and see where we sit?
Well, yeah, I can come up with that. Yeah, I certainly can do that. The catch with that is it'd be real rough not knowing how many students because the reimbursement really is dictated by how many students we serve. So we get per meal, how much money comes back on that. So until we really got rolling, if you're asking me right now, you're certainly not going to profit from it. Best case scenarios, we could break somewhere in the range of even. Worst case scenario, I think, and Kelly, you could chime in on this if I'm wrong. I mean, worst case would be 5,000 to 10,000 maybe.
Yeah, close to 5 probably that we would lose, worst case.
But I mean, typically in the summer, we do not participate in that program.
Yeah, we don't. No, we have not used our cafeterias in the summer at all. And, Mr. Gage, in the question is with the returns and these phasing coming back in and people going back to work, sort of a rapid pace now. It seems like we're seeing the reduction. It's summer. I don't know, how the summer functioning is going to go with that. So, you know what I mean? It's a tough. That's the reason I'm discussing it with you, because it's hard to predict. We tried to survey. I mean, I think we'll get people here. The number we get, I'm not sure of, and we'll coordinate our internal work costs in coordination with how many we're feeding if we do it.
The biggest challenge is going to be to make sure that 50% of who we're serving are the free and reduced kids.
Yeah. So busing would be delivery on buses would be a part of this, because we have to indicate how we're targeting free and reduced students as well. So that's a way of going and saying we're delivering this directly to free and reduced housing, or families, I should say.
Does any other one have any comments on this, what their thoughts are?
I feel it would just depend on how many people you were serving. If it's 20 to 30, is it worth it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right with that, Mrs. Michael. The consistency of who's going to be here, who's not, and that sort of thing plays a role in this. I do see it decreasing quite a bit here. But who knows? He did verbally say he was going to mandate it. So our discussion here could be a moot point. And we certainly could table it for now. I guess if there was an outright, we're not doing this if we're not mandated to, that's pretty clear, and I'll follow the mandate. However, if we still have some inclination that, we still want to do this program for this summer, which would probably only be for this summer, obviously, then that's the only reason they're kind of letting us potentially fill out this application, because we don't qualify for it otherwise.
Because we're around the 40%, is that correct?
Yeah, we're in the 40s. Kelly, do you know what it is exactly right now?
Not exactly, but it's a 39 to 40, right around that range.
And when does the lunch program stop? That stops on?
Yeah, the lunch program would stop on June 30th, but there would be a reset. There would be a period of time in between that. We're filling out the application anyway, and then we'll just need to make a decision as we go forward. So we can certainly stay on pause for right now, see what's coming from the governor's office, and then, make a final decision on this, when we start it in the July meeting. We could do that.
The summer programs that the county has, I know the Newport playground, I had to send money with my kids. To buy the lunches. Are the other town parks the same, or they provide through the county?
Not all the town parks are the same, Mr. Michael. I believe the town of Russia has a feed program that doesn't cost. I don't want to quote myself on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. That's the real concern. Some of the programs do it through a cost base, like you're saying, and some of the regions or the parks qualify under different funding, which provides feed. So yeah, it depends on where you are with that.
I guess my thought at this time is if we could pause it to reevaluate at the next meeting.
Yep.
Is everybody in consensus with that, and see what our demand is and see what the governor states?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up on discussion item D is the capital project update.
Yeah, so I wanted to get this back on the agenda. So when all the closures went down, we were in the process of early planning for, probably a smaller project for the district. And then when everything closed, that put all of the construction, even schools that were in the middle of construction, into kind of a flux as to whether the work was going to continue, whether the workers were permitted to work, and so forth. It took a while that part out, and then they started to permit existing work to continue at that point in time. So those that were doing projects this summer basically were able to get started. But with no one at State Ed, with no one at some of these companies, the architects in some of these places, these planning pieces kind of got put on hold. Well, they're starting to reach out to us again on these things. In terms of that, obviously the financial climate is far different than it was when we initially started to talk about this. So I guess my update for tonight is that this will be an item as we get into the next meetings, July, August, and forward, where I expect this to pick back up. The timing and the schedules that we originally had are no longer valid. We're probably already, and just like every other school that was planning, pushed another year out from that. Obviously, the initial concern would be that the first project will come off without us adding another project to it. However, we do have a second project that was done in the past that comes off the following year as well. So we were likely not going to obviously have back-to-back projects. Some of it's Excel money and so forth. So I'm not completely, devastated if it does get put back a year. But, by no fault of our own here, this is essentially where everyone is at right now. So as we move forward, we'll develop a new schedule. We'll to a certain extent, we'll restart from the beginning so everybody can hear, because, we're certainly going to want to look at long-term finances, BOCES projects and things like that before we get into anything outside of essential items at that point. So I just wanted to update you on that. It's not disappeared, but it's just starting. I just got my first phone call that people are back into the planning process within the last couple of weeks. And, we'll pick up and go forward with that as well.
Okay. Thank you. Next up would be the announcements. And I believe June 16th, correct, at 5 p.m. is when the ballots must be back that were mailed. We're correct with that?
Correct.
And we would, the board would be meeting at 7 p.m.
Yep.
To approve the count.
Yep, that's the plan for right now, just like it was going to be for tomorrow. We're anticipating 2 hours. It may take a little bit longer than that. Depends on the number of votes we get.
Okay, so June 16th at 7 p.m. board to meet for the count. June 27th, high school graduation, as discussed prior. Finals to be determined as far as exactly what goes on. But it does look to be outside at this point with 150 count max. The July 6th, we have the reorganization board meeting. That will be at standard time, 6:30 p.m. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mrs. Sheets to see if there were any public comments.
Yep, I do have some questions. For the questions tonight, I'll state the name of the person and the question they asked, and we'll go from there. The first question is from Melissa Lowell. Her first question is, will the district be willing to seek input from seniors and families to plan graduation? The answer to that is yes. As we get the details and the parameters and the mandates in which we need to work under. We know the 150, but what are the details of that? What are we able to do? What are we not able to do? And those kinds of things. I certainly would be very much open to input. I'm sure Mr. Broadbent as well would be open to any input and ideas on how to celebrate our seniors this year in the best way we can. Any other comments on that before I move on to the next question? Okay, the next question is from Nathaniel Lowell. His question is, there are several people who have requested ballots and have not received them. What are we doing to guarantee all people who want to vote are able to do so? So at this point in time, I'm not aware, Mrs. Sheets is not aware of anybody who has requested a ballot that didn't get one, that did not receive one. However, if there is somebody that needs a ballot, that wants one, that didn't receive one for whatever reason, we would get that out to them right away. They just simply need to call the district office at 315-845-6800 and ask for Mrs. Sheets, and we will get them that ballot. What have we done to ensure this? The website has been consistently updated. The Facebook and social media is consistently updated, including today. The newsletter went out with everything that was in there for those that got ballots and those that didn't get ballots. There was a postcard that went to every household in the district as well that had all these directions in on how to get ballots and so forth. And obviously, this has been a challenge for us as well. We have never had to deal with absentee ballots across the board here. This is new. So this has been a challenge. We've tried to do our best with this to get it out to everybody. We've tried to inform people. I'm certainly open to any ideas anybody else has in here about how to, if there's somebody out there that's not aware of the process on the means that we've done this, we will get a ballot to any person who is eligible to vote that wants to vote in this election.
DJ, is your office staff, are they there every day between school hours, or are they cut down to half day?
No, they're everybody's back full right now.
Okay.
Yep.
When did they come back?
They came back today. Today's the first day we were permitted to come back after the 2 weeks into phase 2.
And what were the hours of operation before?
The hours of operation before were 7 to 1, and then for some, and then we were disinfecting after 1 o'clock. But we've had everybody here probably longer than that, for a little bit longer, but officially today, we're getting in. We're still trying to follow CDC guidelines with that. And if anybody calls after to the district office, we get the message first thing the next morning and return that call. And we've had many people that have left a message with their name, and we call them back and we get them the ballot. We've had a lot of people for that. This process is interesting, even in the other districts, where I'm hearing numbers of 700 where they've had 200 votes and now they're getting 700. The numbers are probably going to be much higher in all the district elections with this absentee ballot, much more than we average as a district in most cases.
What do we normally average as far as votes?
Typically we'll be around 300, 350. Again, depends from year to year on different variables, but that's typically what we're looking at. We've sent out well over double those numbers. We're probably, I don't know what's been returned yet, but, they seem to come in on a daily basis. So, I would expect our numbers to be increased as well.
Okay, is there another question?
Yep. The next question is again from Melissa Lowell. The question is, will the work for SCEP and the district plan be planned for next year? Were we supposed to reconvene this year and haven't? I'll turn that over to Mr. Broadbent. Question is about the groups and so forth with the plan.
Yes, we are setting up groups, parents, teachers, as well as the CASDA people, the woman, Sarah Melita, our contact from the state. I've spoke to her several times. The parents that are going to be on the committee, because we are cited in the middle school, are going to be primarily middle school parents of students who are in the middle school, because that's where our need is and that's where we were cited. So as far as reconvening the exact group from last year, that would not be the case. I'm actually looking for individuals that are more directly related to the middle school. And that would go for teachers as well.
Thank you, Mr. Broadbent.
You're welcome.
The next question is from Renee Polevin. Regarding graduation, senior graduation will we be allowed to purchase a DVD of the graduation ceremony for the family that cannot attend since it's videotaped already? Mr. Polevin, I'll have to look into that. It will be streamed live, so anybody who is unable to attend would be able to watch it through our website on a computer, live as it happens. With that streaming, I believe it is recorded. But I would have to look into that and we can reach back out to you to confirm how that works. I have one more question, Mr. Gage. Are we set with that one?
Yes, please.
Okay. The last question I have is from Melissa Lowell. Regarding remote learning in light of the coronavirus, will there be a plan by the Board of Education to move to a one-to-one Chromebook distribution K through 12? So I guess, Mr. Broadbent, I could speak to that just a little bit. We're getting there pretty close to one-to-ones. Certainly through ESSA funding and different things that we have available to us, we could potentially increase that number over the next couple of years as well and get there. We're getting awful close. We certainly need to be prepared, to have enough technology for everybody. I thought we did a pretty good job from our own personal devices that our community members had at home and getting them devices that they needed in case they didn't have one or needed additional ones. But certainly as we plan, the reopening plan is something that will be coming up. Some of that stuff will have to probably be included as we look at potential for closures in the future or closures in the upcoming year where we need to switch to remote for a period of time. So, certainly getting to that point where we have devices for all of our students to use is something that, we trying to push forward, just even in our own school district itself. Mr. Broadbent, do you have anything you want to add to that at all?
Well, I could just say we handed out 144 devices for the district, Chromebooks for students to use for anybody who requested that they needed these devices. We also handed out 26 hotspots to families who were unable to get service or were in areas where the service wasn't sufficient enough to complete the work. And hopefully, with the continuous fund, we can get more computers as well over the next couple of years.
Chromebooks that you lent out, do they have to be returned?
Yes, they're actually going to be returned on the 15th. We have a record of everybody who has them with serial numbers and the date that they were issued and from what high school or elementary school, so that when they're returned, they also can be locked remotely from the school, so they become useless, and we can have it so it pops up, please call West Canada Valley and return this item. So if it ends up somewhere other than where it's supposed to be.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you know the total amount of Chromebooks that we have, Mr. Broadbent?
If I was to guess, just based on, I want to say there is 80, somewhere around 400 to 450 in the district, or at least in the high school. I'm not sure elementary how many they have.
Yep. Mrs. Holmes, are you there?
I'm here.
Yeah, just additionally to the Chromebooks, we also have iPads over on your side that cover what grade levels?
Yep. So I currently have in grades 4 through 6, we're one-on-one with the Chromebooks. And then in 3rd grade, they're one-on-one with the iPads. In 1st and 2nd grade, there's 2 students to 1. And then in kindergarten, we've got small groups of 6. And they don't really want more than that because the kindergartners tend to break them.
So, we're fairly close right now as we sit.
Yeah, we've come a long way with one-to-one devices, yeah.
So, Mr. Broadbent, you have almost enough to cover the 7 through 12, correct?
We do have enough to cover the 7 through 12. The issue with the Chromebooks we have are through ESSA funding. Those Chromebooks, the 285, technically have to be used only for middle school students, for the 7th, 8th graders, just how the funding comes in. Mm-hmm. And the concern with one-to-ones, and we've talked about it also, is where do these computers go at the end of the day? And in the elementary school, they're primarily in one classroom, so it's not really an issue. But our kids travel between 6 to 8 classes a day, some more. You have charging issues and stuff as well if you're going completely one-to-one where the kids are carrying them with them. So it's all stuff we can look into. There are schools that do it. They have their issues. They have a higher breakage of equipment doing the one-to-one. But it is definitely something we can look into.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, is that the end of questions?
Yes, that's all the questions I have, Mr. Gage.
At this time, I propose, I need a motion to go into executive session to discuss personal matters. Janine first, Jessica second, all in favor? Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.